folks. Welcome to another episode of Supernatural Sunday Bible Study. A little disclaimer. The sources in the show notes are provided so you can explore the original texts and how scholars, historians, and theologians have interpreted them over time. As always, Broadcasting Seeds does not tell you what to believe. We invite you to think deeper about the mystery that's been with humanity since the beginning. Enough said. Tonight, we're going to stare straight into the weird parts of the Bible. Not the refrigerator magnet verses, not the be nice to your neighbor stuff, although that's important. I'm talking throne rooms with burning angels, a shining morning star that falls from heaven, living wheels covered in eyes, and a valley full of bones that suddenly stands up and breathes. Welcome back to Broadcasting Seeds. I am your host, Bennett Tanton, and this is our Sunday Supernatural Bible Study. And if you're new here, this is where we take the pages people pretend are just symbolism and ask, what if the writers meant it? What if they really saw this? Because if Isaiah and Ezekiel are even half literal, then the world you and I are walking around in it's just a lot stranger and more crowded, and more contested than we're taught in school. So here's the scene. Isaiah tells us that in the year King Uzziah died, he suddenly finds himself in a temple that is not just a building, but a gateway. He sees Yahweh sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe fills the rest of the temple. Above him are seraphim, literally burning ones, each with 6 wings, calling back and forth, "Holy, holy, holy is the Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory." Now, you can read that in Isaiah chapter 6 if you want to follow along later. But this is not a calm encounter. The foundation shakes, smoke fills the air. Isaiah's first reaction is not, wow, this is beautiful. It is, I am ruined. Standing that close to holiness feels like standing in front of a nuclear blast with your soul exposed. Some of you listening know exactly what that feels like. That moment where you know there is something bigger, purer, and more real than your Instagram feed, your bank account, and it makes you painfully aware of all your crap, all your junk, and all of the, yes. Then there's Ezekiel. Different time, different place, but the same God. He is standing by a river in Babylon, in exile, when the sky splits open. He tries to describe what he sees using the only language he has. 4 living creatures, human. Well, each one has 4 faces: human, lion, ox, and an eagle. Their movement is like flashes of lightning. Beside them are wheels within wheels, turning without turning, covered in eyes. The heck does that mean? Above them is a clear expanse, and above that is a throne. On the throne, a human-like figure blazing with fire from the waist up and from the waist down. If that sounds like something between an interdimensional encounter and a classified military brief, then you're not alone. People have wrestled with Ezekiel chapter 1 for thousands of years. Some say it's purely symbolism. Some say it is a vision of God's glory chariot. Some say it sounds uncomfortably like technology. But here on Broadcasting Seeds, we are not here to mock any side. We are here to ask better questions. What if these passages are the prophets trying to describe a structured, populated, supernatural realm that interacts with ours? What if angels are not just fat babies with wings, but intelligent, spiritual beings with rank, roles, territory? What if fallen stars and thrones and wheels full of eyes are technical language for realities that our modern materialist lenses just does not have categories for? So in this episode, we're going to walk slowly through the visions of Isaiah and Ezekiel and treat them the way we treat UFO reports or near-death experiences, or government cover-ups that leak on this show, just like we talk about all the time. We're going to look at what they actually said, look at how people in their time would have understood it, and look at how later traditions developed around those visions, and then ask what it means for you and me right now in a world that pretends the supernatural doesn't exist while being obsessed with it at the same time. We're going to talk about the throne room and the burning seraphim, the fall of the Morningstar, later called Lucifer, the living chariot of God and the wheels within wheels, the valley of dry bones and a vision of mass resurrection, and why the Bible's worldview might be closer to cosmic conflict than comfortable religion. My goal is not to convince you to join a denomination. My goal is to get you to look at this text with fresh eyes, to see how much high strangeness is just baked right into the foundations of Western faith, and to ask yourself whether you have been underestimating the battlefield you're living in and on. If you enjoy episodes like this, it really does help when you like, share, and leave a review for the podcast. Bottom line is that is how this show grows. That is how the algorithm, God's loosen their grip a little and let more people find these conversations. So if you get something out of this, please consider that your tithe, I'll say it, a rating, a review, or sharing it with a friend who loves weird Bible or UFO talk or spiritual warfare. Let them know. All right? Take a breath. Grab your Bible if you have one. We're about to go into the throne room, the battlefield in the heavens, and the valley of bones. Section 1, into the throne room, the burning ones. Picture this with me. You're standing in a building you've been in 1,000 times. Same pillars, same incense, same routine prayers you could recite half asleep. Then suddenly, the walls, they stretch out. The ceiling peels back like sky, and you realize this place was never just a building, but it was a portal. That's the feeling Isaiah tries to describe. He doesn't say, I had a thought about God. He says, I saw the Lord high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robes filled the temple. Isaiah 6:1. That detail, the robe filling the temple, it's not random. In the ancient world, a king's robe symbolized power and victory. The longer the train, the more authority you carried. And Isaiah says God's presence isn't just in the room, it overwhelms it, it consumes it. Then the seraphim. And this is where our Hallmark card angels get kicked straight to the curb. Seraphim means burning ones, not glowing, not sparkling, burning. These are beings so intense, they have to cover their faces with one pair of wings because even they can't look directly at the radiance of God, and cover their feet with another pair, a symbol of humility and unworthiness in God's presence. With the last pair, they hover and they call back and forth. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. The repetition matters. And in Hebrew thought, repeating a word elevates it. 3 times puts it beyond limit. God isn't just morally nice. He's other. He's set apart. He's untouchable. Reality defining is what I like to say. And the moment they speak, the foundations shake. Isaiah doesn't clap. He doesn't smile. He straight up unravels. Woe to me, I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips. Isaiah 6:5. Translation is what is this? If this is what holiness is, I'm in trouble. It's the opposite of our modern God is my buddy mindset. Isaiah enters raw, nuclear level purity. And the first thing it does is exposes him. No filters, no excuses. Just trust. Just truth. And then comes the coal. One of these fiery beings flies to the altar, the place of sacrifice, grabs a live coal and presses it to Isaiah's lips. Imagine the smell of that burning flesh, the pain and the heat, right? But in that moment, he hears your guilt is taken away and your sin atoned for. Not ignored, atoned, purified for assignment. And that becomes a pivot point because only after cleansing, only after Isaiah is painfully aware of both his smallness and God's greatness does he hear the question echoing through the throne room. Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Notice the word us. Ancient Jewish thinkers saw that not as God, not God talking to himself, but to his heavenly court. And we've talked about this before. Divine counsel described everywhere in scriptures, like check out Psalm 82, Job 1, a structured spiritual reality with ranks and roles and purpose. This isn't chaos. This is governance. And Isaiah, still scarred, still shaken, probably smelling like smoke, says the words that have been preached for centuries, especially to guys in the military like me. Here I am, send me. Wow. What hits me about this story, especially in the context of broadcasting seeds, is what it suggests. The Bible doesn't imagine a passive universe floating in existential loneliness. There's layers. There's thrones. It imagines intelligent spiritual beings surrounding a God who radiates unbearable majesty. It imagines calling assignment, purpose, and it imagines the human heart being broken open before it's trusted with truth. If that's the backdrop of reality, then the petty arguments we have about faith drive me crazy. It suddenly feels so very, very, very small. The throne room resets the scale and it asks the quiet question. If you ever stood in that place, what would you say? Section 2, the fall of the Morningstar. So, scene shifts, right? The throne room fades. The burning ones are still circling, but somewhere else. Somewhere in an unseen realm, ambition starts whispering. And Isaiah drops a line that has echoed through theology and mythology and conspiracy talk for centuries. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn, you have been cast down to earth. Isaiah 14:12. The original Hebrew phrase is Hallel ben Shakar. It means shining one, or son of the dawn, or both. Shining one, son of the dawn. Later, Latin translations rendered it Lucifer, or translated to light bearer. And here's where it gets interesting. On the surface, Isaiah is talking about an arrogant, earthly king who tried to exalt himself. But the language he uses isn't cosmic. It's throne level talk. Listen to the mindset Isaiah puts in the mouth of this being. I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will make myself like the Most High. This isn't a political swagger. That's cosmic insurrection. In the worldview of the ancient Near East, heavenly beings were often described as stars. So when Isaiah talks about someone trying to rule above the stars of God, he's hinting at a spiritual hierarchy. You got thrones, ranks, authority, and some radiant being tried to climb the ladder past where he belonged. Pride wasn't just attitude, it was treason. The punishment wasn't negotiation. It wasn't lecture. It was expulsion. God threw him down, cast out, removed from the court. That theme runs through other Bible threads, referencing Satan, falling like lightning. The serpent in Eden whispering rebellion. Revelation described a dragon sweeping stars from the sky. Whether you read these as metaphor or stacked on history or history wrapped in metaphor, the pattern remains. A being created brilliant forgets who the source of brilliance is and turns inward. And here's the question nobody likes asking. Why would a spiritual being rebel against perfection? Think about that. Think about it. No hunger, no sickness, no taxes, no HOA fees, just presence, power, proximity to the divine. And still, I want more. Maybe the seed of all corruption, human or spiritual, is the same sentence. I should be God of my own world. And through the Broadcasting Seeds lens, this reads a lot like every mythology, every empire, every tyrannical leader, every tech billionaire repeating the same script. Raise the throne, build the tower, rewrite the rules, become your own architect. And every time gravity wins, cosmic freaking gravity, because there already is a Most High. And the closer a created being gets to trying to replace him, the harder the fall, man. Whether Isaiah intended to describe a literal fallen angel later called Lucifer, or an earthly king mirroring a deeper spiritual rebellion, the picture is the same. Reality has a hierarchy, and rebellion against it fractures everything. War begins, trust breaks, creation feels the ripple. You and I live on that battlefield. And here's the subtle, haunting angle. Isaiah never mocks the fallen morning star. He mourns him. A once radiant being, now a warning, a reminder that beauty without humility can become a weapon. The power without gratitude eats itself alive. That light cut off from its source eventually, bottom line, eventually burns out. So now we've seen two poles: unfiltered holiness in the throne room and prideful rebellion reaching for the same throne. Between those two, history unfolds. And Ezekiel will he'll show us what it looks like when the throne doesn't stay still, when it moves, when it arrives like a storm. You've got lightning and eyes and wheels within wheels. We've all heard this. A chariot of fire, not metaphor, mobility. And God, who doesn't stay in the sanctuary box. And that's where we're going to go next. Section 3, wheels within wheels, and when the throne starts moving. All right, deep breath. Goodness, because now we step into one of the strangest, one of the strangest scenes in all of Scripture. The kind of scene that makes skeptics roll their eyes, I get it, and makes the rest of us lean in a little closer. So Ezekiel isn't in a temple. He's not on top of a mountain. He's not fasting in some desert. He's standing by a river in Babylon, displaced, disoriented, a prophet in exile, when all of a sudden the sky opens up. And this is where language starts to fail him in describing this. He tries to describe what he sees the same way someone in the 1800s might describe a smartphone, a cell phone, right? You can feel him reaching for words, just stretching them out, and twisting and bending them, stacking metaphors like bricks, hoping they'll build something. So a storm cloud approaches, alive with flashing fire. Out of it come 4 living creatures. Each one of these creatures has 4 faces. Okay. One's human, one is a lion, one is an ox, and one is an eagle. Each symbolizing intelligence, strength, royalty, and vision. Now, the full spectrum of created power, right? Their legs are straight. Their feet are like polished bronze. They move instantly, like lightning, not walking, not gliding, just appearing. And beside each one, this is where it gets really weird, wheels, not single wheels like a cart, but wheels within wheels, intersecting circles, turning in every direction, but without turning at all. And the wheels, they're covered with eyes. Sit with that for 1 second. Covered with eyes. Moving geometry, sentient motion, awareness embedded into machinery like structure. A throne platform. Ezekiel says the spirit of the living creatures is in the wheels, meaning this isn't tech. This isn't metal. It's alive, a living vehicle of divine presence, something ancient Jewish mystics would later call the Merkava, or the chariot of God. Above the creatures, a crystalline expanse, like clear as ice. Above that, a throne. And on it, a human-like figure glowing with fire, radiating brilliance like molten metal in a forge. And Ezekiel, like Isaiah before him, collapses. Because that's what happens when small things encounter infinite things. You fall down instinctively. Here's what fascinates me, though. In the ancient world, most gods were territorial. They stayed with their people. If you were conquered and taken into exile, that meant your God either abandoned you or wasn't strong enough to protect you. But the God of Israel shows up in Babylon on wheels, portable sovereignty, right? Almost as if he's saying, you thought I was confined to a building. You thought exile meant I was distant. I can freaking move. From a broadcasting seeds angle, this reads like a cosmic invasion sequence. Lightning, sound, mobility. A throne that can deploy anywhere on earth, anytime. A divine presence not trapped behind stained glass, but riding in full view of the sky. Now let's address the elephant in the room. People have speculated everything about Ezekiel's vision. Angelic beings, symbolic poetry, UFO encounters, interdimensional technology, psychological vision. And to be fair, Ezekiel never says spaceship. He says living beings. He emphasizes spirit, relationship, communication, right? The creatures respond to the will of the one on the throne. This isn't rogue tech. It's hierarchy with order and obedience, a kingdom. And whether you read this as a literal supernatural reality, spiritual metaphor, or prophetic imagery layered with meaning, one truth keeps surfacing. The Bible's view of God is not small. He doesn't drift like a ghost. He doesn't sit bored on a cloud. He rules, man. He commands, moves, arrives. And when he does, reality vibrates, which leads to the hard question. If the unseen realm is structured, intelligent, and mobile, then maybe spiritual life isn't about escaping the world. Maybe it's about learning to live on a battlefield already occupied, because wherever this throne goes, power follows, and judgment, mercy, and change. Ezekiel has sky-splitting encounter by a river during exile, completely unprepared, which means encounters with the divine aren't always scheduled, sanitized, or safe. Sometimes they interrupt your life. Shocker. Sometimes they derail your plans. Oh my God, bigger shocker. Sometimes heaven rolls into town like a storm. and you realize you've never truly been alone. Section 4, the Valley of Dry Bones, resurrection before resurrection. Now, we leave the roaring sky and the living throne behind and step into silence. Ezekiel is carried in a vision to a valley. Sorry, goodness. No storm, no lightning, just emptiness. And the ground is covered with bones. Not skeletons neatly arranged, not bodies like frozen in place, like, what's that place called? Pompeii. No, these bones are scattered. They're bleached by the sun, lifeless for so long that even the memory of muscle has disappeared. And Ezekiel emphasizes it. They were very dry. Translation: hope died here a long time ago. This isn't a battlefield paused mid-fight. This is the aftermath of a defeat. This is the place where identity just goes to rot. And God asks Ezekiel one of the most absurd questions in the Bible. Son of man, can these bones live? You can almost hear Ezekiel swallow hard, like he doesn't say no, but he doesn't dare say yes either. He gives the only safe reply: Sovereign Lord, you alone know. Because from a human angle, the answer is obvious. Bones just don't come back to life. Dreams don't resurrect. Nations don't return from exile. Faith doesn't magically reboot once it flatlines. Except God tells Ezekiel to speak. Not to kings, not to angels, not to the living. He tells him to speak to the bones. Prophesy to the bones. So Ezekiel does what prophets do. He obeys. And that's when the valley starts to move. A sound rolls across the desert like distant thunder. Bones begin to rattle. Femurs search for hip sockets. Ribs find spines. Vertebrae stack like stone towers, rebuilding themselves. Sinews thread back into place. Flesh stretches. Skin seals. I mean, I can't even imagine. Just what the hell? And now the valley is filled with bodies. But they're still not alive. Because in the biblical worldview, life isn't just mechanics. It's not a machine. It's breath, spirit. That same Hebrew word used for wind, for life, for the breath God exhales into Adam in Genesis. So God tells Ezekiel, prophesy to the breath, and the breath comes. Wind howls, all the lungs inflate, chests rise, and the entire valley, once a graveyard, stands at the feet like a vast army. Here's the part people miss, though. God explains the metaphor. These bones are the people of Israel. They say, our bones are dried up and our hope is gone. This isn't just about biological resurrection. It's about identity and memory and calling. It's about a people who believe their story was over, whose culture, faith, and future had been ground into dust, being told, nope, I'm not finished yet. And through the broadcasting seeds lens, this is pure supernatural psychology. It's God stepping into collective trauma and rewriting the script. It's the antithesis of nihilism, where our world says things fall apart, and stay that way. Ezekiel's vision screams back, not if God breathes. And if you look closely, there's a theme running underneath all that weirdness. Isaiah's lips are purified. The rebel star falls. The throne moves, and bones rise. Over and over, the message is that heaven isn't passive. It intervenes, sometimes in judgment, sometimes in mercy, but always intervenes with intent. And this valley vision isn't sentimental. It's military. The bones don't resurrect into a choir. They become an army, meaning hope isn't just emotional comfort. It's mobilization. It's purpose restored or mission resumed. And here's where it reaches through history and taps you on the shoulder. Where in your life have you declared death too early? Where have you looked at a valley, or like a relationship or a nation, your own sense of meaning, and said, yeah, that's done? Because Ezekiel's lesson is uncomfortable. You are not the final authority on what God can resurrect. You don't get to close the book while he's still writing it. Sometimes the bones are still bones. That's absolutely true, because no one has spoken truth over them yet. No one has invited breath. And when breath comes, everything changes. Section 5, living in a supernatural worldview. All right, so let's zoom out for a minute. Because at this point, we've walked through a throne room filled with burning angels, watched a radiant being fall from cosmic pride. We've seen a living chariot blaze across the sky, and stood knee-deep in valleys of bones reassembled into an army. So, here's the question. What kind of world do we have to live in for these stories to feel normal? Because Isaiah and Ezekiel didn't write like fantasy authors. They didn't apologize. They didn't say, look, I know this sounds really weird and insane, but bear with me. They spoke like reporters. They were stunned, shaken, but convinced of what they saw. Their worldview was supernatural by default. The unseen wasn't some sort of metaphor. It was infrastructure. You have God, the uncreated source. You have heavenly beings, which are conscious, intelligent, and ranked, right? You have rebellion, spiritual and human. And you have judgment and mercy, active, not abstract, active. And you have earth, which is the intersection point of all this. This isn't Marvel, and it sure as hell isn't Dungeons and Dragons, right? This is how the Bible writers believe the universe actually worked. And that's where the tension is, because modern Western culture doesn't buy that anymore. We live in a two-story worldview. We got downstairs, which is science and politics, economics and psychology. And then we have upstairs, which is angels, demons, God, spirituality. I mean, maybe, right? And the staircase between the two, it's all locked up. We got it locked. We turned the supernatural into folklore, fiction, or therapy. We diagnosed it, we softened it, we sanitized it, we made God small. I mean, angels were harmless, and evil, we've made evil something that happens when people are just misunderstood. Yet, At the same time, we binge watch paranormal investigations. We argue about UFO footage. We talk about energy, manifestation and signs or omens, right? We feel, this is one of the biggest things to me. We feel hair rise on our arms at night and pretend we're not spiritual beings. So which is it? Are we alone on a rock spinning through cold space or flat earth or whatever the hell you want your theory to be? Or are we actors on a stage built inside a cosmic conflict older than civilization? Broadcasting Seeds doesn't exist to tell you what to believe. I'm staunch about this. It exists to invite you to ask deeper questions. And then Isaiah and Ezekiel force us to confront something really uncomfortable to a lot of people. Maybe the supernatural world didn't disappear. Maybe we just stopped paying attention because their stories don't make sense. Because their stories don't sound like escapism. They sound like briefing reports. There is hierarchy. There is loyalty. There is betrayal, communication, and there is mission. And humans are not spectators, as much as you'd like to think that. We are participants. And Isaiah learns that purity and calling can come at a cost. And that proximity to God exposes everything false in us. Ezekiel learns that God doesn't stay in holy buildings. He rolls wherever the hell he wants, even into the empire that conquered you. The fallen Morningstar reminds us what happens when identity without humility metastasizes into pride. And the Valley of Dry Bones teaches us that despair lies because resurrection doesn't wait for permission. And together, these visions whisper a bigger truth. And that is, the Bible wasn't written in a world where God was an idea. It was written in a world where God was an encounter. And those encounters shaped politics. They shaped war, religion, family, economics, but also hope. They shaped how people lived, what they feared, what they worshiped, and frankly, what they were willing to die for. It still does. So here's a reflective gut check moment for all of you. If Isaiah and Ezekiel were right, if the unseen realm is real, structured, and moving in motion, then your choices echo beyond your lifespan, right? I mean, pride is more dangerous than ignorance. Hope is more powerful than circumstance. And worship it isn't sentiment, it's alignment. And maybe the reason the world feels so fractured is because we keep pretending the battlefield isn't there. But the prophets, they didn't pretend. They opened their eyes and they wrote about it. The story behind the story. And let's ease back out of the vision, okay? Throne rooms fade, burning seraphim drift back into the unseen, and the chariots rises away from us into the sky, and bones return to dust. But the questions stay, and that's the point. Because Broadcasting Seeds isn't about forcing answers. It's about waking people up to the idea that the world is, in fact, layered. That what you see out your windshield is only half the damn story. And that the Bible, far from being a soft, sanitized devotional book, is one of the most supernatural texts humanity has ever preserved. Isaiah and Ezekiel weren't playing pretend. They were trying to describe the indescribable at their time. They were standing on the edge of the veil, writing by the light of something that burns brighter than the sun, stumbling for metaphors big enough to carry that weight. And you and I, we're inheritors of their reports. We live in a world still haunted by rebellion, fear, faith, control, awakening, deception, worship, but still hope. A world obsessed with power and terrified of meaning. A world that secretly knows in the quiet moments that maybe we aren't alone. And maybe there's more going on than the freaking news cycle will ever admit. So here's my challenge to you. Don't run from this mystery. Don't flatten the world to fit your comfort zone, okay? We have to ask better questions. We have to search older sources. Sit with the hard things. And don't assume that unseen means unreal. If this episode stirred something, if it lit up that part of your brain that's hungry for truth, connection, and the strange corners of history and faith, then do me a favor. Like the show, share the episode, and leave a review wherever you listen. It genuinely helps this project grow. It helps other curious minds find this community. And it lets the algorithms know that this kind of conversation still matters. I'm Bennett Tanton, and this has been another Sunday Supernatural Bible study here at Broadcasting Seeds, where we explore the strange, the sacred, the hidden, and the human. So until next time, stay curious, stay grounded. Please keep your eyes open, because sometimes, man, the truth just isn't hiding. It's waiting.
In the quiet of a trembling room, light breaks through like a second moon, and every fear I thought I owned falls like dust from a heart of stone. Voices rising like a burning choir, wings unfolding in a sea of fire, and grace comes down like a healing flame, writing love where there once was shame. And the sky opens wide like the truth we try to hide. There are wheels in the sky where the wind comes alive, and hope keeps moving through the darkest night. Fallen stars fade away, but say myth, some say dream, but hope is always living in between, where heaven leans close to an ordinary life and whispers softly, you were born for light. And the heart wakes up like a sleeping drum when love reminds you you're not alone. So here we stand in the great unknown, but somehow it still feels like home, because every breath and every tear is held by someone always near. Holiness burns, but it doesn't destroy, it melts the fear.